Are you guys ready for rapid fire?
First round of rapid fire, baby. Let's go.
Here we go. Countdown to kickoff game day rapid fire. Do you buy or sell this game, starting with Vince, as the biggest of Marcus Freeman's career?
Up to this point, a game that hasn't been played yet, yes. I think the Ohio State game last year was big, and I think the way it played out made it even bigger, probably. But up to this point, I think, in games that haven't been played yet, if he can go win this game, this is a benchmark moment for Marcus Freeman as in his tenure as the head coach at Notre Dame. Like I said earlier, if we look back and they win this game, we're going to look back at this and say, okay, that's where things really got kicked off in the right direction. So this is his biggest game right now.
Yeah, I have to agree with Vince on this one. And again, kind of echoing some of the things I said a little bit earlier, this is year 3 for Marcus Freeman. This is, your most deep roster, your best coaching staff, your probably most talented quarterback. You have to find a way to win this game on this stage and springboard your season to where you need it to be, right? Because a lot of people already view this schedule as, kind of being weak and the true amount of road tests and all that stuff. You have to take advantage of this data point because it is going to be very influential to a lot of people by the time the season is over. And again, it's going to be, I think, what either springboards them towards their national championship run or just another kind of, maybe 10-2 kind of season, right? And as fans, the expectations ratchet up every year with the coach. And so to me, this is his most important game.
Look, you've rebuilt the roster. It's the deepest rosters we've talked about that we can remember in quite some time. There's talent all over the place. There's different length and athleticism and everything else on this roster that we haven't seen in a long time. It has become a modern college football program with the way that it's built. But the bottom line now is you've got to go out and not just beat teams that you're supposed to beat. You've got to beat teams also that you're an underdog against. And in a road situation like this, again, I don't equate Texas A&M to an Alabama or a Georgia, like if you're going to Tuscaloosa or Athens or one of those places. But this is still, the world thinks you're not going to win this game. The world thinks you're going to lose this game. You're going into a hostile environment, and you're going into year 3 for Marcus Freeman and all the things that year 3 has been for a head coach at Notre Dame. Last year, that Ohio State game that you mentioned, Vince, was the first opportunity at a signature win for Marcus Freeman. This would be a signature win for him. And again, with a schedule that doesn't have much teeth the rest of the way, this would be huge for Marcus Freeman and this program. So I'm buying that as well. So Riley Leonard's season yardage over under on FanDuel, 2,525 and a half. Over under on that, guys.
Can you give me, I don't have my laptop in front of me right now. Can you give me his number, his full season number at Duke? Do you have that on hand?
A little over 2,900 that he had 2 years ago, including his bowl game.
Easy
now remember,
over.
this is a regular season number, so like 26. I think it's right around, it's 26 something that he had for the regular season, but including his bowl game, it was 29 plus. So
to me, well, I want to say easy over, but you got to look at the schedule, right? There might be times where he's not even playing what you would hope, playing in the second half or fourth quarter of these games, right? But you never know. I still just really like the over because of who his offensive coordinator is, the amount of weapons that he's gonna have at the wide receiver position. Jaden, Greathouse, Kris Mitchell, Jordan Faison, Bo Collins, Jaden Thomas, Jeremiyah Love out of the backfield. Like I really like that in terms of fitting into a Mike Denbrock offense. The only thing that has me hesitant is, like I was saying, the potential to get into some of these blowout type situations that you would hope for, and he might not be able to rack up some of those extra yards that might be crucial by the time the season comes to an end. But I'm still going over at the end of the day. Over.
That was a wonderful answer, Jesse. I also am tempted to take the over here, and I think that I would, since I'm, not playing with any money at the present. So I would take the over. I do think that he's going, there's going to be many opportunities for this wide receiving core for yards after catch and things of that nature, right? And I think that Riley Leonard will be the recipient of some big plays where he doesn't even necessarily have to push the ball down the field. I think the players will push the ball down the field for him. You know what I mean? And so while I do think he will push the ball down the field, and I do think he will rack up some yards, it's funny. Like originally I was thinking like 2,600 in that neighborhood would be a good year in 12 games, right? I just, I think he'll hit that. I do. Even in the games where he gets pulled early, I think he's going to rack up those yards in the first half. It might be a full game's worth of yards in the first half against some of that competition. So I feel good about it, and I will take the over on this one.
Yeah, because even you look at if he's in blowout games and those kind of situations, like how that affects his yardage and all that different kind of stuff.
It's only 208 yards a game.
And that's what I was. It's right around like. I was just doing the simple math in my head. If it's 12 games, 200 yards a game puts you at 2,400 right there. So now you only need 126 more yards, basically. So it's not like a massive number. Now, at the same time, Sam Hartman had a similar number last year, and Hartman only ended up with 2,600. I just think that playing in a more innovative passing offense with the targets that he's going to have around him, I think that ultimately that is going to put him over the top. Because I think, kind of like Jesse was saying, just piggybacking on that, even if they're blowing some teams out in the first half and he gives way and Steve Angeli gets to come in the second half, he's probably going to hit a couple of big pass plays, just like Tobias Merriweather had, on his big pass play last year, So I'm going to go over his running and all that stuff factors into this as well, like how much that takes away from him and everything else. But it just seems like, again, 2,525. It seems to me like 2,600 is a very realistic number for Riley Leonard. So I've got to go over. What about his touchdown number? 19 and a half, and he got 20 for the season in 2022 when he was at Duke. So, I mean, this is like right on that number there.
I feel like you hammered the over on that. I feel real good about that number. I don't think that's going to be a problem in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I actually think this is easier than the passing yards because that boils down to just like 1.5 passing touchdowns a game. Even if he only gets like, let's say, one against, Texas A&M, I think he easily gets like 3 against, Miami of Ohio or Navy or, those sort of games, right? I think it's going to balance out. I look at him as more kind of like a 24.5 kind of line at the end of the day. So I think, again, this is easy. I feel way more comfortable about this one than the passing yards.
Yeah, I've got to go over on this one as well, because just what you mentioned in the 4 games against group of 5 teams, and they are, because they're playing 2 service academies and 2 MAC teams in those 4 games alone, he could have 15 or 16 touchdown passes, just depending on the flow of the game and how things go, so like, or at a very minimum, he could have 12 in those games. And that leaves you 8 other games for him to get, 8 more touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I agree. I think this is a really easy over as well on 19 and a half.
It's a real shame that Ohio is real lame. I might have to cross
Come on over.
lines.
Scoot back into Indiana. You're going to have to do it pretty quickly. You're going to have to ride that river over here if you're going to make it.
Come on over.
If you see a blue raft coming down, that's me.
This is not a Vegas number for Jeremiyah Love, but we're going to do this over under. He doesn't have one that I could find unless you guys have seen one. 999.5 rushing yards for Love this season.
I would take I'm going to hesitantly take the under on this just because I think he's going to, if you said combined yards, I think he might hit that, but Jadarian Price is still going to have a role in this offense. He's still going to see his fair amount of touches. I like Jeremiyah Love as more as, the all-purpose receiving and rushing type yards, but I just think that it's a very, very cautious line to kind of tread. So I'm going to take the under. I would take the under on that one.
I would take the under as well for that exact reason. I think he is a very versatile back. He's going to get a lot of touches, and he may hit that. But I think the odds are that he is splitting carries because they're both really, really good backs.
Mhm.
And, Jadarian Price is going to get a bunch of touches. Love's going to get a bunch of touches. But there's only so many touches that are going to be had, right? And so I think that's what keeps him under.
Yeah, I agree. I think that 800 is probably his max number, but I put it up, like everyone's very high on Jeremiyah Love. So I put it up there at 1,000 to see if anyone thought that he was going to get, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Price is the guy who ends up with 1,000-yard rushing season, and Love ends up even somewhere around between 13 and 1,500 total yards, something like that, because of like just what you guys said, the versatility, the all-around play that he's going to have. With Notre Dame, of course, opening at Kyle Field, College Station, Texas. Heat has been a big topic of conversation. What do you guys think? Hopefully this is the last time we ever have to talk about this, but bigger factor, the environment or the heat this weekend?
Oh, it's the environment. I mean, the heat, okay, like people are making a big deal about the heat. Well, last time I checked, it was hotter here in South Bend this week than it was down in Texas.
It was.
So it's null and void for me. Like it is not a factor in any way. They practice in it on purpose and they're used to it. It's not even a factor for me. They've been working on, the fluids and the hydration and all of those different things. And then they actually got to practice in the humidity and the heat. Okay. So that part's not an issue for me. So by default, it's the atmosphere of the 12th man, right? And Kyle Field and, the SEC and, all of that. And, look, you came to play major college football. This is what you signed up for. I mean, it's going to be a factor, but I don't think it's going to be the be all end all.
Every time I get this opportunity, I'll always take it. Heat kills bacteria. Only the strong survive the heat. And the thing is, both teams are playing in the heat, right? And I think it's great that it was so hot that we had this kind of mini heat wave this week, because it allows them the proper preparation that they need at the end of the day. So I've said this before, and Vince, I think you can agree with this. Like, you get to a point in the game where your body just doesn't really feel the heat anymore, right? You're just playing. Like, you don't think about the heat. Like, everything's hot. You're all sweaty. Like, it's fine. You got cool rags. You're going to have fans. You're going to have cold water, Gatorade on the sideline. It'll take care of itself. The only thing I'm worried about in terms of heat is how the body responds. Are you properly hydrated? Do cramps come into play?
Exactly.
That's the only thing I'm worried about with heat. But environment, man, when you talk about a loud stadium, a young offensive line that's going to be trying to communicate, picking up pressures, an offense, a quarterback that might have to go silent count, a Mike Dimbrack offense where they like to motion. They're going to have to hit their landmarks and know when to motion and that sort of stuff. So to me, that has a far more impact than what the Heat will have.
I completely agree. It's the stadium environment, the Kyle Field Stadium environment. I don't need to rehash any of the the heat related stuff that you talked about. I'll just throw in the fact that they are using the the new helmet headset communications this year, coach to player in the helmet. So are they going to effectively be able to do that when Notre Dame is on offense? Is Riley Leonard going to be able to hear everything? Are they going to have to go to hand signals and all that kind of stuff? So I think it's definitely the stadium factor, the environment factor that's going to be the bigger deal.
I think
fill in the blank. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. The last thing I'd say about this is, like, the only reason Texas A&M is favored is because they're playing this game at home and the environment that it creates. If they were playing this game in South Bend and it was as hot as it's going to be, you might see the line. The line would be in Notre Dame's favor. The line is switched up because of where they're playing the game at, not because of how hot it's going to be.
I agree. That's a great point.
Yep.
Glad you brought it up. Fill in the blank. It'll be blank if Notre Dame has another 10 men on the field kind of moment this season.
Agonizing. I can't deal with that. I can't. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have to defend it. I don't want to. I mean, yeah, it'll be agonizing. I just, come on now. Don't do this to me.
I would say I would say detrimental because you just can't do something like that again. It's kind of like your one warning, right? Like we kind of got over it, but if it happens again, that's when it kind of becomes, I think, more detrimental to, people starting to question, is Marcus Freeman cut out to be a head coach? Is he cut out for, making sure that, that sort of stuff, the easy stuff, I would say, is taken care of at the end of the day?
Yeah, it will be coach defining, I think, in the view of public opinion on Marcus Freeman. That's kind of the direction that I was going to go, that where Jesse finished there. It'll be a big referendum on where people think Marcus Freeman is in terms of his fitness to be a head coach. Is this young, charismatic guy, as many good things as he has done for this program in a short amount of time, is he really cut out to be a head coach if you have that kind of thing again? That's just the way it'll go, especially 2 years. And it doesn't have to be 10 men on the field. I'm just talking about some kind of stupid boneheaded gaffe that is otherwise preventable, that happens in the middle of a game at a crucial moment.
Speaking of kind of coaching fitness, did you guys catch he was on Part of My Take earlier this week, and they gave him the hypothetical, coach, you're 3 minutes left, you're down 2 scores, you score, are you going for 2? And then, basically the whole go for 2 situation, right? You get 2 shots. If you don't get it the first time, you got the second time to get it. But if you get one of them, you end up winning the game. Got a lot of criticism for that because he said he's not going for 2 at the end of the day. So I guess, what would your guys' opinion be if you're the coach in that situation? Are you
You're
going
down
for
by
2?
3 scores. Would you go for 2?
You're down 2 scores. You just went in for your first score. And there's
we're down 16, or we down 15?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big
14.
difference in like.
Sorry. All right. You're down 14.
Slow down.
Just scored. There's about 3 minutes left in the game. Are you going for 2? Or
No.
are you giving the ball back to your defense?
You go for 1 the first time,
no.
and then you see you see where you are the second time. You don't chase points early, because then that puts you in a situation where you have to go for 2 the second time. You don't go for 2 on the first touchdown.
Not a chance.
So that's where he was getting a lot of flack, because the analytics say you go for 2 in that situation.
That's dumb. You don't chase points at that point. Just like Sean said, you are down 14 points. You're not down 15, where you're going to have to go for 2. If you miss, like you said, then you have to go for 2. I would much rather push it to overtime and have an opportunity to win the game even later. Or if I feel like I've got momentum and maybe I'm on the road, or maybe I have no business being in this game, okay, then you go for 2. But give me that option at the end. Like,
right.
You don't even have that option if you go for 2 and miss early.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
That was kind of Marcus Freeman's actual rationale. He said, we get to that situation in the second score. I trust my team in overtime. I trust my roster in overtime comparatively to, whatever's going on. So he has more kind of trust and faith in his team in overtime if it came down to it. Yeah. And I liked the answer. I don't like the whole go for 2 as well. I think you're thinking too much about it at that point.
There's a place for analytics. It's obviously become a big part of sports that I think, a lot of us don't even think about, that because there's so much of it going on with what the coaches are thinking and stuff like that. But look, Brendan Staley got a head coaching job because of analytics. He's also been fired already because of analytics. How'd that work out for him? Like, you have to have some feel for the game as well. I think Marcus Freeman actually does a good job, like with when to go for it on 4th down, some of those things, I think he's done a good job with it. So I hadn't heard that became a thing with his answer to that. So interesting.
Just thought I'd bring it up, just kind of, talking about people's perception of his coaching abilities, I guess you would say.
Sure. So which is more likely to happen in this game? Notre Dame, Texas A&M. 1, Jordan Faison returns a punt for a touchdown. 2, Jayden Harrison returns a kickoff for a touchdown. Or 3, I looked at the wrong. I had it all written out here. Or 3,
James Rendell.
James Rendell forces a fumble. I think I had it written down here wrong. That's what was confusing me. Texas A&M fumbles a punt off the foot of James Rendell. One of those 3 things.
It's the third one. James Rendell fumble forces a fumble on a punt return, that kind of thing, because the ball comes down in such a weird angle. There's no way to practice that. And nowhere has that been put on film yet for them to practice that. Like, they have no idea what's coming their way. And it's super odd and it's super strange. And I think there's going to be a muff in there someplace where Notre Dame could take advantage. I do.
So I'm going to be different, and I don't want to copy what Vince is saying just for the fun of it. I think that Texas A&M will likely see a punt or two and just get into a lot of Peter situations. Be like, you know what? We don't even want to deal with this. Just get away with the ball. Get away from the ball. Wherever it gets down, it gets down. So I think I'm going to go with a Jordan Faison touchdown at the end of the day, because I think, it's expected. People, they know, if Texas A&M did their due diligence and their homework, they know who Harrison is as a kick returner. He got brought in. He was, a very good player at Marshall. I don't think a lot of people know about Jordan Faison quite yet. I think his shiftiness, his ability to kind of, elude some tackles, his size, I think, plays into it as well, being able to be more elusive. So, again, to be fun and to be different, I'm going to go with the Jordan Faison punt return.
I like the Jordan Faison answer, and I've been thinking about it. Like, when I was writing this question up, I was thinking, like, I think we're going to see some shiftiness, and maybe he breaks one. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Joey Getherall kind of guy from several years back, just kind of with that size and that wiggle that he's got to him, but I'm going to go with the muff punt thing too. It's something that we've talked about, and having seen the way it comes down, it is very unique. I think that is going to be an issue for some teams this year. It's interesting because when the coordinators, they do it like the Tuesday media availability, all three coordinators come out, and someone asked Marty Biaggi about it, and he basically didn't want to talk about it. Like, he didn't want, I don't think he wanted to sort of alert people that it could be an issue from them, because they've never seen this guy, punt over here before. So I like, especially if it's raining out there tomorrow night, Saturday night, like, I could see that being a big,
forgot about the rain
issue. So, yeah. All right. Riley Leonard says his two favorite places to eat here in town are Mission Barbecue and Polito's Pizza. Jordan Faison says chicken and waffles at Peg's are his favorite. So my question, where do those three places rank for you in terms of local favorites here? Do they register for either of you guys?
So, first of all, I don't think I've had Mission Barbecue, if we're being honest. I've always first of all, South Bend, Indiana, if you want barbecue, you're in the wrong place, brother. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And unless you make a
Price Pig isn't bad. Price Pig isn't bad. It's a couple miles from where we live right here.
Good. I like Frankie's. That's always a solid option. But again, if we're talking like top tier, top end barbecue, there's not a lot in the South Bend, Indiana region.
True.
Pegs, I haven't been to in a while. And again, even if I have gone, I don't think it's maybe once or twice. And then can you say you said Polito's?
Polito's Pizza. Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever had Polito's Pizza. When we're talking pizza in South Bend, I'm going with, Barnaby's, Bruno's, that kind of situation. Maybe I've had Polito's, because I feel like you guys have tried just about every pizza place in the area. I'm sure I've probably had it at some point.
I actually did some DoorDash Polito's Pizza, because it's not far from where we live now compared to where we used to live. I did some DoorDash during a couple football games last year from Polito's.
Nice. So I guess, long story short, I don't know if my answer would have a lot of weight. But if we're
just say they don't register. That's all you got to say.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They don't write a book
for me.
God,
Vince,
this one's easy for me. Although we had Mission Barbecue last night, actually, and
you must have went with Brian.
Oh no, it was actually the featured meal at the senior /
Oh, that's right. You did the
night.
Okay.
So, which we also helped coordinate. But anyway, it was really good. But at the end of the day, if I'm making a decision on where I'm going to eat, it's Polito's all day, and it's not close. Polito's has amazing pizza. It's a little too far for a drive when I'm just like, hey, I'm going to go pick up a pizza kind of a thing, because of the, just the distance.
Yeah.
But we used to go to Polito's all the time when, earlier on in our marriage. because it was located in a different place.
Right.
But then they
They had a
moved.
kitchen fire several years
They
ago.
had
and
a
they
fire,
moved.
exactly. So they had to move. So it got a little bit too far away, but I love me some Polito's pizza. So it's Polito's and it's not close.
Polito's is good. Like, I'm not as they've got a New York style, and they've also got like a stuffed pizza. And I used to be big on their New York style. I'm much more on their stuffed pizza now.
Okay.
I really enjoy it. It's like a stuffed with meat and cheese and stuff
okay.
like that. So, like you said, Jesse, like from a family standpoint, if we're gonna like get a pizza, we're more likely to go to Barnaby's, here in town. But Polito's is very solid. Mission Barbecue is not bad, but it's a chain place. I prefer a couple of the local spots that I mentioned just because they're local and not chains. I don't know that I've ever been to Peg's. If I have, it's maybe been once.
Never have.
Yep. When he said the chicken and waffles, it made me want to maybe check it out sometime.
I don't think I've ever had chicken and waffles.
I don't think I have either, or maybe once.
Yeah. When I'm going to a breakfast place, that's not high on my list of things.
There's actually
a
place in Syracuse that I saw on Food Network that's like it's like a waffle place, and like they do all different kinds of waffles, and they've got like a chicken and waffle that I really want to try.
Okay.
When I go there with basketball this year, because I haven't tried it so far. If we stay close enough. Okay, let's predict the 12-team college football playoff field. So let's go around. Start with your 4 conference champions. Start with that. It helps when you look at the rundown, Jess. Come on.
No, I know, and I actually suggested this question.
I think you did, actually.
Yeah, he certainly did.
Resources were limited today, and I definitely forgot this was on the queue.
But you got your car totaled, so
You got the car totaled. I'll give the easy ones to start. I like that we're going with the easy ones. Vince, homework. I like that.
Man, Vince is coming. He's just saved that from what he did like a month ago when I told him he did it the wrong way.
Yep. That's exactly what happened. But it's here.
Miami, Georgia, Ohio State, Utah are my 4.
Okay. So you're going out of the box a little bit with Miami as your ACC champ. Okay.
Yeah, you are.
Going hard on Cam Ward. Yeah.
I have no faith in Cam Ward, so Miami is definitely not my ACC champion. I had Florida State, which maybe isn't a great pick at the moment, but we'll see how it all plays out, obviously. But I have Georgia as my 1. I've got Ohio State as my 2. I've got Florida State as my 3, and I've got Utah as my 4.
Okay. So I've got basically Clemson. We've all got somebody different for the ACC. I've got the other 3, though: Georgia, Utah, Ohio State, Clemson. And that's mostly because of the fact that Florida State didn't just lose last week. They lost a conference game right off the bat as well.
I know. And almost out of my mouth, I was like, but conference play hasn't started. But yeah, it did. And they lost. So they're already fighting an uphill battle. So,
what about your group of 5 team? Who do you think is going to be the best group of 5 team, which will get you into the playoff if you're the highest ranked group of 5 team this year?
This was actually tough for me because it could go any direction. You know what I mean? It's just I picked Memphis. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who the 12 is because they have to go on the road to the 5, and it's probably not going to be all that close. But I did pick Memphis in this case.
Jess?
Liberty was mine. It came down to Liberty and Boise State. But Liberty is edging it out for me. A little bit more experience, I think, on the national stage, especially of recently.
I went a little bit different direction, and I'm going with Troy as my group of 5 team.
Jared Parker led Troy.
Jared Parker, that's right. He inherited a team that was in pretty good shape, won 11 games last year. So I'm going to say Mighty Troy is the group of 5, the top group of 5 team that'll get into the playoff. Wouldn't that be something if Troy comes to South Bend for a playoff game?
Just to have to head back with an L, but it would be pretty cool. You want to talk about storylines? That would be one of them.
That's right. Okay, so that leaves us 7 other at-large teams for the playoff. Who wants to go first?
Do you have it ready, Jess? Go ahead.
Yeah, I refreshed my memory.
Okay.
Notre Dame, Texas, Oregon, Alabama, Penn State, Ole Miss.
One more.
I
And
think you got one more.
yeah, I got one more, but I can't decide who that
My
one
last
is gonna
team was the
be.
hardest one, I felt like, because I've got
I know.
all the other teams that you just named: Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Alabama. My last team was the hardest. Before you give yours, Vince, do you have any that are different than those 6?
I have Ole Miss out.
Okay.
So they are not in my 5 because I only have 3 SEC teams, 3 Big 10 teams, 2 Big 12 teams, and 2 ACC teams.
Ooh,
Okay.
2 Big
So
12 teams.
so you've got Utah winning the Big 12. Who's your second Big 12 team?
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State. Okay.
Yes.
Good pick.
Yeah.
And then another ACC team then?
Clemson.
Clemson. So
Yep.
you've got Florida State and Clemson both making.
Yes.
Okay, so Jesse, your final team is who?
I got to stick to what the common trend is in all of these, and that's SEC biasy. So I'm just going to throw another one in and say our good friend Brian Kelly at LSU.
Ooh. So you've got 5 SEC teams making the playoff in that case.
I do.
I've got
there's
4,
a lot of
which
bias.
I initially didn't have Alabama in, but it's like 12-team field. It would be pretty shocking if Alabama doesn't even make it in a 12-team field.
The SEC is not getting 5 teams in.
I don't think so
beat
either.
up on each other enough that's not going to be the case.
Yeah. I'm going a little dark horse here, and I'm not feeling as good about it because they struggled Thursday night in their opener. But I'm going with NC State. They're a little bit of a trendy pick. I'm going with NC State as a second ACC team to
Okay.
get in. I've only got one Big 12 because Oklahoma State's a pretty solid pick, but I'm just not that confident in most of the teams in that conference. Arizona could actually be a little bit of a dark horse as a second team in the Big 12 as well. Actually.
Arizona's a trendy pick. I just don't trust their quarterback. Everybody just loves him so much, and I just don't see it.
All right, let's finish with some game props, some individual, and then we'll pick the winner here at the end. We don't have to spend a ton of time on these. Jeremiyah Love, over under 58.5 rushing yards.
Over.
Yeah, he might get that on one play.
Yeah, I'm going over as well, or at least 2 plays. I'm going over as well. Jaden Greathouse, over under 38.5 receiving yards.
Over.
WR1. He's going to have more than that.
He's the most important wide receiver in that offense.
I don't disagree. I'm going over as well. What about Kris Mitchell? His over under 37.5 yards.
This is the classic Chris Tyree dilemma last year. He could get this in one play if he ultimately wanted to. I think he's going to get his shot eventually on some one-on-ones, stretching the field down the sideline. That's going to open up the middle of the field for the rest of the team. He'll get a one-on-one some point, so give me the over.
Yep, agreed.
I'm going to go under. I think that he's going to get a lot of the attention from the secondary because of the season that he had at FIU last year, and the rest of Notre Dame's receiving corps, especially the 2 Notre Dame, the 3 returning guys, Thomas, Greathouse, and Faison, who are going to be a big part of the rotation as well. I think it's going to set, especially a guy like Greathouse, like you were alluding to, Jess. So I'm going to go under on, like, he can easily do it in one catch, but I just think he's going to get the bulk of the attention from Texas A&M secondary in this game. What about A&M receiver Moose Muhammad, over under 40.5 yards?
Probably over, because I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot because they're going to be coming from behind.
Yeah, I mean, again, even if he's got 5 catches, that's still only 8 yards a catch, and he's going to hit that over. Being a focal point of who they're trying to get the ball to, I would just take the over. It's a better bet.
Yeah, I'm going over as well. Don't know exactly who their number 1 is going to be, just like we don't know who Notre Dame's number 1 is going to be. It's got to be somebody. So I put it on Muhammad. Riley Leonard's passing yards over under 201.5 yards.
This one's so hard. I mean, I want to go with the over, but I just don't know. I think his legs are going to be the X factor. I don't think it's going to be his arm. I mean, and I'm not saying he can't do it. I just don't know if he will do it. You know what I mean? So I would stay away from this one, but for the argument, I will take the over, but not by a whole lot.
I'm going to take the under. I think this is more so like a 150 to 180 type range. But he'll make up the difference with his legs. And again, Jeremiyah Love, Jadarian Price are still going to have a big impact as well on the kind of total yards for the offense.
Yeah, I'm hesitant on this, but I will take the over. I'm like, my thinking is somewhere around 210, maybe 215, something like that, plus about 75, 80 rushing yards to go with it. But I'll go over on Leonard, but again, I'm not confident enough that I would probably just stay away from it. Connor Wigman's number is 230.5 yards.
Under.
I'm going to take the over just because of volume. I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and they may dink and dunk their way to 230. It's not going to translate to points, but he could get some yards.
I'm still going to go under. Like I can see the path that Vince is talking about, like they're chasing points maybe toward the end, and they're throwing it around and stuff like that. But I still hedge toward the under on this. Team point totals in this game were interesting. A&M's over under for their score 24.5 points. Notre Dame's is 21.5 points. So that shows you right there what where Vegas thinks this game is going to be, which is just absurd to me.
I'll take the under for sure on A&M's. We'll get a better idea for my score prediction, and I'm going to take the over on Notre Dame's as well.
Absolutely.
Me too. We'll see it in my score prediction.
Yep.
100% on all of it.
Exactly. The game over under is 46.5 points. And I guess we'll get to that with our predictions right now. Vince, I'll let you lead it off. What's your prediction for this game?
Well, I have to take the over if I'm going to stick with my prediction, because my prediction is 48 total points. So I guess I got to take the over. If I'm betting it, though, I would probably take the under because I think points are going to be a little bit more harder to come by. But again, my score prediction is over. So I guess I got to stay consistent. Obviously, I would take Notre Dame plus the 2.5. I would also take them on the money line. I've got Notre Dame winning 31-17. You might, to be honest with you, at the end of the day, you might be able to take a touchdown away from both teams, and that might actually be more closer to the truth. But I do think Notre Dame's going to score, and I just don't see A&M. I mean, honestly, I'd be surprised if they put up 17. I feel like a late touchdown, when the game's kind of already been decided, could get them there. That's why I put it. But I think 31-17. That's what I've got.
I'll just say this up front. Any team that gets to 30 wins this game, no matter what. If you get to 30, you win this game.
I agree with that for sure.
I don't think either team is going to get to 30, though. My final score prediction is Notre Dame 27, Texas A&M 13.
Mine's 27-17. So we're all kind of right in that same ballpark. Again, I feel like the offense that makes the most explosive plays is going to win this game. And I think that between Riley Leonard, Jeremiyah Love, and the running backs, or the wide receivers rather, and even Mitchell Evans, the tight end that Notre Dame is going to have on the field, Notre Dame is going to have the much better chance to hit some explosive plays against A&M than A&M is against Notre Dame's secondary. Guys, that's going to do it. Game 1 is on the way. We're almost there. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. Great to see you guys. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Don't forget, Vince and I will be back on Monday for
Victory
the big
Monday.
show. And, of course, there will be a late-night post-game show. Are you going to be part of the post-game show again, Vince?
Oh, I'm hosting the post-game show.
Hosting the post-game show.
Yeah, baby.
That's right, because Vince is down there. So, all right.
The star student.
Enjoy the game. Notre Dame, Texas A&M coming up. IB countdown to kickoff, and we'll talk to you next week.